Welcome, everyone. Welcome. It is 7:01 p.m. It's October 11th, and this is the Reservoir Hill Association General Membership Meeting. Welcome. So as every month, we do the same thing, but just to repeat the sections, we will start with board reports, which should take around 20 minutes. Then we'll move into the main discussion. We have two presenters today, and each of them will take around 15 minutes. One will be Mr. Chad Williams from the from the West North Avenue Development Authority. And then we also have representatives who want to share their plans for 701 and 707 Druid Park Lake Drive. We'll then end the meeting with any announcements. And I see you. Hi, Michael Castagnola. Is that correct? Yes. We'll be here to present on behalf of 701 and 707 Druid Park Lake Drive. And then we'll end the meeting with our announcements. And at that moment, anyone who has anything additional to share with the group, please feel free to speak. And of course, during the discussion sections, we always welcome your participation. And without further ado, we'll begin our reports. Chandra Pryor, I am the president of the Reservoir Hill Association. And what I've been up to over the last month, I've been spending a lot of time organizing and supporting RHA in organizing for their annual meeting, which is to take place on October 27th at 6:30 p.m. at Dorothy I. Height Elementary School. And that will be a moment to really meet up with other neighbors who are concerned about the tunnels, to hear about the work that's being done, and then also how you can join the effort in slowing down the tunnel, if not stopping it. The Reservoir Hill Planning and Development meeting is going to be a meeting of all of interested Reservoir Hill organizations that are interested in coming together to talk about development projects in the neighborhood. We think it's really important that we have a united place to discuss planning and development issues. And so we're planning a meeting to do that on Monday, the 18th of October. We also had a really fruitful conversation with Councilman Torrance's office. Arlen, I don't know if you're going to get into this in your part, but briefly, we came to the conclusion that there needs to be a higher level conversation with the Department of Transportation, the Department of Planning, and other involved departments in the city to discuss the plans for our streets in our neighborhood, and making sure that there is an upper level discussion about how the intersecting developments will impact the way that our streets work in the city. So we'll keep you, I'm sure Arlen will keep you abreast of that. We also had a meeting with the Neighborhood Design Center. This has been a really ongoing conversation that was sparked by the West North Avenue Development Authority's formation in realizing that we actually don't have a neighborhood plan. And so we began discussions with all the neighborhood organizations, again, that are interested in development. And we also contacted the Neighborhood Design Center to see if they would take us on as a pro bono project. And I think we'll have more information definitely by the next meeting, but we should hear more about whether or not they will take us on as a client in the next couple of weeks. And then in addition, we haven't actually been able to talk about this as a board, but we are slated to have an annual meeting. We're supposed to have a board annual meeting. We're ending our fiscal year in the next 2 months. And in preparation for that, we're supposed to meet as a board, and that's part of like our bylaws and our financial procedure plan. And I would like to talk to the board about the potential of also having an annual meeting of our members in person at Dorothy Height, so we can talk about our goals for the new year as an organization. That's something that we discussed last year, but we weren't really able to get off the floor because we had a lot of transition on the board towards the end of the year. So really hoping that that will be possible this year. And I will move on. If anyone has any questions, let me know. My contact information is at the bottom of the screen. And now shifting it over to Jerika.
Hello, good evening. I don't have anything to report to this month.
Jerika, you don't want to tell the group about how you took over Wanata, being the Wanata rep, or about your advocacy with Matthew Henson? She's being humble.
Well, you know what? Because it was my first meeting, it was more of a listening for me. It was just interesting to see the different organizations come together on one accord, to make and to ensure that North Avenue is conducive to the residents and not just business owners. But most of the time I was just, again, listening in and just trying to feel my way through of what exactly is going on, and who should be included in the meetings and who should not be. I did find that there was a couple of neighborhoods that I believe and I feel that a lot of what's going to be happening on North Avenue is going to kind of back up to these organizations. And we need to do a better job of making sure that we're inclusive to everyone over there. Mr. Williams was very informative of what the intentions are going to be for that whole section from Coppin or up to at least 83. But for me, it was just trying to find out exactly what is going on. I also was a part of a press conference. Not that this is in our district, but it is in the Western District, that they have been Mr. Marvin Cheatham and others, to include representatives from Reservoir Hill. Have raised money to get a skate park over there in the Easterwood community. If nobody knows what that is, that's over there near Bentlow, Monroe. I'm trying to think some of the other streets over there. And they have raised way over $500,000 from, I think, donations, as far as also from the state of Maryland. And they had gotten the go-ahead from Department of Parks and Recreation. That's where they gotten some of the money from as well. And now they were shovel ready. And some of the politicians in the area decided that they wanted to do something else with the money. So it has put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And so we're now fighting with petitions and things to hopefully get that skate park built. There are 4 in Baltimore City, and none of them are in a predominantly African-American neighborhood. We felt that one of the reasons why we wanted to put a skate park, because it wasn't just for skateboarding, it's for any apparatus that has wheels other than dirt bikes. And they have, like I said, have had petitions. The residents are all for it. And it was going to redo one of the basketball courts that has now been turned into an eyesore and a place for local drug dealing. So we just felt that putting this skate park would definitely help out in the neighborhood and be, used by all. So if anybody hasn't reached out to you, please support that initiative as well. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Jerika.
You're welcome.
And if you want to contact Jerika, that's for email at the bottom of the screen. We also have a new member. We have several changes to our board that we'll be announcing today. But we have, through the amazing work of Rolando and Melda, who are like our recruiters in chief, we were able to welcome Jasmine Alford as secretary. And as you all know, we've been looking for a secretary for quite some time. Jasmine wasn't able to attend today, but she will officially start next month. And she wanted to share, hi, I'm Jasmine. My plants and I moved in the neighborhood in 2020, and I look forward to getting to know you all. I'm a grad student pursuing my MBA in marketing, and whenever I find the time, I enjoy exploring the city. Jasmine couldn't be here because she's actually working on a grad project. So hopefully in the next month, you'll be able to see her face to face and welcome her to the board. Welcome, Jasmine. And off to Chet.
Good evening, everyone. I've got a small report for our finances up on the slide here. We currently have $2,387.46 in cash on hand, and we have two payable items totaling $214.90 right now. So we have a little, almost $2,200 total in our assets for the organization right now. You can, for anybody who wants to donate, you can donate through PayPal, or you can write a check or donate cash. Currently, there's a PayPal takes out fees every time there's a transaction. I think it's 50 cents plus 3.5% for every transaction. So we're working on figuring out how to make it so you can donate the fees as well. But you can also write a check or donate with cash to the organization. We welcome any donations. If you have a specific thing that you want to donate toward, like greening or social events, etc., you can also notate that with your donation. And I just also wanted to say, for the movie night we had in August, one of our members donated all the expenses for that. So there was $160 in money taken in from that event, and all the expenses were covered by a generous member. So thank you to them. And I think that's all I have.
Thanks, Chet. And another member of our board is joined tonight, and that's Dale Terrell. He will be the chair of the Architecture and Historic Committee. If you want to just do a quick intro, Dale.
Yes. Hey, everyone. My name is Dale Terrell, and glad to be here tonight. Love the intro Jasmine did in writing. So I guess I don't have any pets either, so I'll say me and my plants are really excited to be a part of the board. There's some really nice plants that I hope I can feature in future home and garden tours, but I got to get the weeds away from them first. But I'm so happy to be here, and I'm really excited about being part of the organization and helping, build out the next steps towards what a fully realized chat district in Res Hill looks like. So glad to be here tonight.
So glad to have you, Dale. And you must be wondering, for everyone else that didn't hear about Rolando's official resignation, he did resign from the position of the historic chair, and we have full confidence in Dale's unique ability to actually get this work done of creating a citywide recognition, because we have a federal-wide recognition as a historic district, but we would like the city to also recognize us, and we welcome Dale. We're so excited for you to join our board. Thanks. Okay. So Rolando has now stepped into a position that has been vacant since we started. Welcome back, Rolando, as the safety chair. He is heading up the Safety and Security Committee. Rolando, if you have a couple words to share.
Yeah, sure. No, not really. The safety and security being vacant. So this gave me opportunity to step down from the historical and pick up safety and security. So I just want to make Mr. Officer Gillespie be aware of it, that I'll be getting in touch with him so we can start planning some event and things for the neighbor, some walks and anything else that we can start planning to make the neighbor a little more safe.
Thank you, Rolando. And Officer Gillespie, if you have anything to share, you can now, but also note that now Rolando is your contact to Reservoir Hill. I know you haven't had really a steady contact with us, so hopefully that communication will improve.
Yes, ma'am. I just saved his information. I have go over the statistics for the Reservoir Hill. We have no homicides to report. You have no shootings to report. You have no rapes to report. You have 2 robberies to report compared to 2 last year. You have 5 ag assaults compared to 5 last year. You have 6 burglaries compared to 4. You have 5 larcenies compared to 10. And the biggest number that increased was the auto thefts from 7 this year to 1 last year. You have no arsons to report. With the auto thefts, everybody knows it's getting cold outside. You have to be careful when warming up your vehicles, and depending on the year your vehicle was made, just because you have the push button start and you don't have that key with your car can still be driven off, because I have a vehicle that can do that. So you have to be careful about warming up your car in the morning. If you're going to do it, just try to keep a good eye on your vehicle, because like I said, the criminals, they change their crime patterns up. Now there's the stolen autos. We just had a FedEx truck that was stolen because they left the keys in there. It was stolen on Utah, but we recovered it in Reservoir Hill. So like, everybody is watching. So just make sure, if you're going to warm your car up, lock it. If you have a car that's up to date, once you start it up, once they try to put it in park, your car will completely shut off. So, just be mindful, just the small things. Like with the burglars, just make sure you lock your doors, because sometimes people don't lock their doors and people just walk right on into their homes and, just start committing crimes. The other thing, I know everybody's, anxious to know when the redistricting is occurring. We still haven't, they still haven't told us anything. There's going to be a festival on the 16th on White Lock. So what I did was I also notified the Weston's NCO unit to come over, and then if y'all come, whoever wants to come, you can meet the officer, the NCO officer or the NCO sergeant, whoever shows up. But I know I will be there. So just like a small introduction, into the what's going to happen at some point. And if anyone has any questions, I'll try to answer them right now for the sake of time. Excuse my appearance. I had to take my son to football practice today.
That's wonderful. Okay.
One question.
Yes.
When will be this event, Officer Gillespie?
It is
the 16th.
October the 16th. It's 11 to 3. It's the Harvest Fest for Reservoir Hill.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I already met some of the supervisors for the Western District.
Yes.
A couple of months ago.
Okay. Like I said, tomorrow after we do the stranger danger at the Catholic school on MLK, then I'll get back to the district and then I will send you that flyer also.
Okay. Officer Gillespie, anecdotally, I heard that crime across the city was down in September. Is that true? Accurate?
I can't speak on the whole entire city.
Okay.
I can just speak for our district.
Okay.
I don't have the numbers for everyone, but I can get them to you.
Okay, sure. I was just curious if that was true, because they said it was dramatically lower in September, which would be good news. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Officer Gillespie. We'll move on just for time. Sorry. Thank you so much for coming, even during football practice.
You're welcome. There's no problem.
Lauren Muhammad, our green chair.
Hi. Long time no see. How's everybody? I'm doing well. I'm reading the slide, Keandra, because I usually just start talking, but I have to see what I'm supposed to be talking about. Okay. So on the 20th of October, it's a Thursday evening, from 5 to 6, I'll be doing a home composting presentation with the department, partnering with the Department of Public Works at the Harlem Park Community Garden. I'll have to post the address. I think it's 1730. I'm not sure the address. On Friday, October the 21st, I will be at the Baltimore City's public school, speaking to all the Baltimore City public school teachers. It's their professional day. And I was given an opportunity to facilitate a session. And my topic is more greening space in public schools. I've partnered with Great Kids Farm. So I'll have a representative there to speak about their relationship with Baltimore City Public Schools. And then I'll have another representative from the Baltimore City Public Schools Greening Program to talk about the grants and things that are available and try to get more greening spaces in the Baltimore City Public Schools for the mental health and environmental health of the children and everybody involved. So on Saturday the 22nd, there will be a tree giveaway at the White Lock Farm. And that also is being sponsored by the Department of Public Works, but they're partnering with Joaquin at the White Lock Farm. After I did all the legwork, then Joaquin popped up. So that was fun. So Dorothy Heights is looking for volunteers to read to the children in the library once a month. Also, they're looking for educators. They're very short on teachers. They specifically said science, and I'm not sure math. So the principal is very engaging. And I think the more our presence is there, the more access we'll have to the facility for events and things of that nature. They're really trying to create a strong relationship with the schools. So I went as a representative of RHA for the community meeting. They had a community partners meet with the school. And we got all the updates on where they are statistically with the kids' IEP programs and grades and attendance. And so they're also interested in a green space because I was able to speak to the fact that when kids are greening, they tend not to miss school because they don't want to miss the opportunity to be outside that day. So I've been doing different engaging things, and I probably left some stuff out. I had a wonderful pickling class last month, so at St. Francis. Also, I don't know if this is relevant. I was referred to Johns Hopkins by Arlen for an initiative that Hopkins is trying to do in the Reservoir Hill community particularly. They even have maps of the areas they would like to cultivate. First steps is doing a survey in the community with the parents' permission and paying each participant between the age of 14 and 19, $25 for doing the survey. So I connected them, the contact, to Angela at St. Francis. So now the three of us are in a thread. So Angela is definitely on board, but I'm just trying to preserve the relationship that I first had because Angela now has all the ideas and all the children and all the But yeah, I'm still working, guys. I'm going.
Thank you so much, Lauren, and thank you for being a partner for Dorothy Height. And so if you have if you're interested in volunteering at Dorothy Height or organizing a group, there's a deep need for reading tutors. I also heard there's a need for math tutors. So if that's something that you're interested in helping to organize, parent volunteers, I think reach out to myself or Lauren and we can connect you to the right people at Dorothy Height. Okay, Janae.
Hi, thank you so much. I apologize if there's a lot of background noise. Things are happening, but nonetheless, I wanted to share with you a little bit of past, present, future as far as things that are occurring with the events committee. I'm Janae McLean, chair. So we've had the opportunity to support a number of our neighbors as well as organizations. And this is just a short list. It is not all inclusive, but nonetheless, over the past time since we last met, we've had an opportunity to participate in some of the Reservoir Hill community partner calls with Beth as well as a few other organizations that are coming together and sharing some of the events that they're sponsoring and organizing throughout the neighborhood as well as the city in certain instances. And so we've had an opportunity to have representation on that call. We shout out to the Preserving and Canning course that one of our own members, Ms. Lauren Muhammad, facilitated. It was an amazing course, and I'm loving my pickles. They're beautiful, almost too beautiful to eat. And then we've also had representation for the Green Up Cleanup. I think I made that that name up, but it's with our friends of German Park, where we had the opportunity to do some sprucing up for the fall. We recently had the opportunity to also collaborate with one of our neighborhood partners, Olu Butterfly of Around the Way Unicorn, as well as In Life, and that name should sound familiar. We had a chance to work with In Life for our previous movie night. So they had a garden art party event that was really amazing. And so we had an opportunity to support that as an organization. So in the present, our next meeting is actually scheduled, our next events meeting is actually scheduled for October the 27th. As you saw with our president's slide, there is a big RAT meeting that is going to occur on that date and in conflict. And so we're going to move that to October the 28th, which is a Friday. And in addition to that, separate from that, we're going to start trying to organize our Google group. So for those of you that have expressed interest in the events committee, you're going to receive an invite for that. I'm dipping my toe into a little bit of new technology. So I think it'll be a nice way so that we can connect offline and really get done some of the things that are occurring between our different meetings. And in the future, we have a lot of exciting things going on. So in the immediate future, we have the Halloween party in the park with Umina, and potentially St. Francis Neighborhood Center. And so that's going to be, surprise, October 31st. So we're in the process of organizing all of that. I think it's going to be a really fun time. So it's just a grouping of everybody in the neighborhood and an opportunity for the kids to rotate through the park and go to different stations, pick up candy, etc. And also an opportunity for the neighbors to come out and enjoy one another, chit chat, etc. And so this is in addition to any treats that you want to hand out at your house. And I don't know if people saw on Nextdoor, there's a treat map. So please, if you're going to be giving out candy in the neighborhood at your house, go ahead and sign up for that treat map through, again, Nextdoor. We also have movie night in the park, and this is a partnership with Parkway Theaters. They had the opportunity to attend our movie night in August. And so we're going to be in partnership with Friends of German Park, who kind of facilitated the next steps around that, and St. Francis Neighborhood Center. So that's going to be on November the 12th. Thank you to everybody that answered the poll that went out over the weekend. And it looks like Top Gun won our selection for the movie night that's going to be featured. So that is what we're planning on showing on November the 12th. And it's going to be a little bit of something different in that the temperatures are going to be a little bit chillier. And so hopefully we will have the opportunity to have a little bit more fun and enjoy an outdoor movie. We also are bringing back part 2 for our holiday edition of the Garden and Home virtual tour. So we're going to be organizing that as well. So we have a lot going on, and I think that Google Group invite is going to come in handy for that. And so do keep that in mind. And in the future, not listed on the slide, we also need to talk about what we want to, the different events we want to organize for 2023. It is that time of the year. So start thinking about it. If you have already expressed interest in the events committee, again, that Google invite is coming. If you are hearing things that sound good to you and you think will be fun to participate in, please reach out. We can be reached at events@reservoirhillassociation.org. Email is in the bottom of the slide. And I'm sure I left something out, but nonetheless, thank you so much for the opportunity to very quickly run through a couple of things that are in events that are happening in the neighborhood. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Keandra, if there are no questions.
Thank you. I think we'll have to move forward, Janae. We're actually at time for our report. So I'm sorry, Daryl, and also sorry, Arlen, but if you could keep your report to a minute, just so we have enough time for the WNATA presentation. So Daryl, you are next.
Hello, everybody. Daryl McClain. I am also outside. Marketing chair, I can make mine very brief. Our next meeting is Thursday, October the 20th. On our agenda is just a bunch of stuff that we've talked about over and again, and we're going to take care of all of it. For this meeting, we haven't met in a while, so this is a good space for us to meet because there's not as much that we are doing in support of events and other organizations. The newsletter is finishing up and it'll go out tomorrow. And we continue to support other organizations with our social media messaging. So if you look for us on Twitter and follow us, look for us on Instagram and follow us, and Facebook. Everybody's there at Facebook. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Daryl. And this is going to be really hard, Arlen, but if you could.
Okay, real quick. Most of those are not on there. The main position now is looking at 912 Newington. One of the neighbors contacted me regarding the owner was petitioning the neighbors for signatures. As you may or may not know, there was a BMZA meeting it was last week. And after the meeting, he started petitioning. This is mainly the result of our elected official, James Torrance, defending the neighborhood and saying that in order to get a zoning ordinance passed, they have to reach out to the neighborhood initially. So while that particular property initially was a single family that was converted to a 5-family according to their auction, which got pushed back to a 4-family, which is now being held up because they did not get the unit occupancy taken care of beforehand. That's a reflection of the action of RHA and showing that we do have some teeth in the neighborhood. That's also reflected at 2001 Park Avenue. So just to keep it brief at that, make sure you join the Druid Hill Park Walk on the 11th. No, that's the 13th at 4 p.m. I'm going to skip the DOT meeting and the neighborhood design since you already touched those. And I know that Chad will discuss WNATA. Also at Betham on October the 15th at 1 p.m. there will be a historical walk along Utah, Whitelock, and then back up around. So that's my 1 minute.
That was incredible. Thank you so much, Arlen. And for those particular events, do you mind sharing those with Daryl so he can add it to the newsletter so people have that? Okay.
Will do.
All right, so moving on to the discussion section, we have Mr. Chad Williams from the West North Avenue Development Authority. Mr. Williams, do you need access to make a slide, or are you just speaking without a presentation? Do you need access to?
No, I'm gonna speak without a presentation. I looked at how many folks are on here, and I think many of folks have heard this spiel before, but for those that are new, maybe they'll have some additional questions. So first of all, good evening, everyone. I am Chad Williams. I am no longer the new executive director of the West North Avenue Development Authority because it's been longer than 6 months. I came from Las Vegas area. However, I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I was leading the Regional Housing Authority out in Las Vegas. The West North Avenue Development Authority is a Maryland independent agency, which is a unit in the governor's office created by the General Assembly for 2 purposes. One, to create a comprehensive revitalization plan for West North Avenue from Hilton Parkway to Park 83. And then there's still always a dispute, and I joke about either 250 feet or 250 yards north and south of the avenue. And it's primarily to focus on housing, transportation, and economic development. And the approach that the membership, quote unquote, the board, and let me tell you what the membership and the board is defined as through the legislation. The chair of the board by legislation is Dr. Anthony Jenkins, or whoever is the president of Coppin State University. Then we have a representation, president of the Maryland Institute College of Arts. The governor can represent himself or have an appointee. Then the governor's administration or secretaries who represent Department of Housing and Community Development, Department of Transportation, Department of Commerce. Then the city has the mayor can represent himself or an appointee. Usually that is the deputy mayor for economic development. So we're expecting Justin Williams, who the mayor appointed as the new deputy mayor in that position, to come on board. And then we have the directors of the Department of Housing and Community Development, Transportation, Planning, and then the Baltimore Development Corporation. And then you have two community representatives, one representing the east and the west side of the avenue. In your particular area, that's John Dre Jennings for Druid Heights CDC. And then on the western portion, that's Minister Glenn Smith for Coppin Heights CDC. When I came on board, and then we also have two representatives, one from the delegate side, Marlon Ombrey, and then we have Senator Antonio Hayes, who was the champion of this legislation, as a representative, and then a representative from the Baltimore City Council. So that makes up technically the board's director / membership of the authority. When I came on board, one of the things that was uniquely clear is that the need for action of a revitalization plan. When I did my initial assessment, we determined that there were approximately 8 or 10 neighborhood plans, and I wanted to run through those plans. One was the Druid Heights Community Plan, which was done in 2000, the East North Avenue Plan done in 2017, the Greater Mondawmin Plan done in 2012, the John Edward Howard Elementary School Inspire Plan that was recently completed, the Links Plan, which dealt more with commercial and retail development, a Madison Park North Plan, a Penn North Plan, a West North Avenue Revitalization Plan done by Coppin Heights. Then you have your North Avenue Rising Plan, and then you have your West North Avenue Streetscape Plan. And so it was very clear that there are various plans that all neighborhood associations have participated in, their citizens, but none of those plans created a synchronized plan that covered the entire West North Avenue. And so from a professional aspect, myself and a fellow have started, we've read all of those plans. We started to put together what we would determine would be a synergized plan for those. We plan to present those over a period of 3 to 4 months with what we call our resident coordinating meetings, which your leadership of your neighborhood associations participate in coming up with a comprehensive revitalization plan of all of those plans. And if anyone hasn't received the matrix of those plans that we have assessed, I can send those out again and have your leadership share them with all of the members of this association. I think it's really good to view that matrix because it lets you see how all of these neighborhoods have broken down housing, transportation, green space, economic development, education, social services along their particular area of West North Avenue where they touch. And I think that would be important. So sometime around this spring, after a few community engagement sessions of redrafts of the narrative portion of this comprehensive plan, we plan to hire a WSP and a neighborhood design center and Inspire Green as a collaborative urban planning firm to come up with visual renderings of maximizing based on the zoning, residential retail complex that are derived from those 10 plans that have been merged together into one comprehensive plan. The legislation requires us to submit a comprehensive plan to the General Assembly no later than October 1st of 2023. And so that is the goal of the authority. And then the second legislative intent of the authority is to acquire vacant, abandoned, and blighted land along West North Avenue when identified and funded. And so what does that mean? One is the authority looks at and has looked at with our initial capital, $1 million in capital grant money to acquire and look at blighted, unused, vacant property. And so actually we have identified as our first target of acquisition, the car wash was at the corner of McCullen and West North Avenue. And the reason why is one, that car wash is made of 8 lots. The city already owns 4 of those 8 lots. And so the authority would acquire the remaining 4 lots, and then the other 4 lots owned by the city would be disposed to the authority. We have also, and I'm not sure whether it was someone in your neighborhood association, but I believe so, let me be aware of the church that is on that corner of the block, which was for sale for $175,000. And we've reached out to a commercial broker to start the negotiations to acquire that church. With that being said, if all of those 2 transactions come true, then we will own that entire block except for a small little apartment or commercial building that's in the middle of that. So that's number 1. Number 2, we are in discussions now that Coppin Heights CDC wasn't able to receive their low-income housing tax credit to build additional affordable housing units on the abandoned Walbrook Mill site, have accelerated discussions with Taharka Brothers Ice Cream. I'm not sure if people are familiar with Taharka Brothers Ice Cream. It's a local Black-owned ice cream company right here in Baltimore. They distribute and sell their ice cream now in Walmart and also Amazon Fresh nationally. Started by 5 young Black brothers. They grew up in West Baltimore, and actually one of them lives in the Walbrook Mill apartments. And so we've accelerated that process of using a portion of our capital funds, grant funding from the Baltimore Community Foundation, a line of credit that we received from the Baltimore Community Foundation, funding from the Baltimore Development Corporation to have them relocate their ice cream facility on a portion of the 30,000 square foot building that will be torn down and then rebuilt. It will be an ice cream production facility, and also it will also allow for touring of an ice cream facility. And so that's creating jobs, workforce development for people that live right in West Baltimore. Second, that land also would be conducive for opportunity for open works, an opportunity for people to come and be entrepreneurs and develop their own kind of arts and crafts, a central kitchen, and then some commercial and retail office space. And that would support the food hall, which is already being developed in the Walbrook Mill apartments. And one of the things that I thought was important is that we try to reduce the number of LIHTC deals in this particular area, because we need to increase the, I wouldn't say density, but I would say a diversity of income, so that we can entice a different type of retail and commercial entities along West North Avenue. And then the third point, which many people would be familiar about, would be Madison Park North, which David Bramble has started to, he's already broke ground, he's dug up. Y'all see the little mountain dirt there. But looking at opportunities where he still needs to bring in a grocery store and identify commercial tenants for the phase 3 of that development. And then looking at trans-oriented development around West North Avenue and Pennsylvania Avenue. And so what I tell people is that the authority primarily, one, is to create a comprehensive revitalization plan with residents. And I hope that everyone participates directly or indirectly through their leadership. and then identify until we get a comprehensive plan where we can get the biggest bang for our buck. And right now that's at the Walbrook Mill lumberyard and at acquiring the car wash in that particular lot, which we think is an opportunity to remove blight along West North Avenue. And so in consideration of time, I think I took about 10 minutes. I will take any questions that you have that may be specific that I wasn't able to articulate in a really quick presentation.
Okay, so I have one question in the chat, and this is from Linnell. She asks, as you have reviewed and digested the multiple plans, have there been any gaps also identified? For example, gaps in need or maybe touch points inadvertently overlooked?
Yes, those are two things, commercial and retail development. Obviously from a neighborhood plan, as a resident, one of the things that people initially harp on is removing vacant, blight, and abandoned properties and additional affordable home ownership or housing opportunities. But this particular area of West Baltimore has a single family vacancy rate of between 30 to 40%, right? So it's not about creating additional home ownership or, creating, multiple multifamily units, right? It's about really infilling the single family home ownership that is already there first, and then determining an increase of density, right? And that's just the philosophy I've had, and it's a philosophy that I try to impart on the political elected officials that I report to. Is that, big buildings are nice, but obviously if you want to sustain a neighborhood, it's sustained through home ownership, unfortunately, not through rent. Renters support the density and additional income that you need for foot traffic, but sustainable home ownership is the key to sustaining any type of neighborhood. And so then the gap was like commercial and retail development. And so that's why the authority has focused on bringing Taharka Brothers into Walbrook Mill, supporting the food hall, supporting a maker space in Walbrook Mill, just not popping it up somewhere and buying a lot and saying, let's get somebody in there. This is like a targeted focus area off the avenue somewhat, where people still have time to have an imprint on the total comprehensive plan of the avenue, and it's sort of out of the way. And so I felt that was probably something that people could see and have an impact without them feeling that they didn't have any kind of thought process in a whole comprehensive plan. I hope I answered your question.
I hope so too. So I just want to make sure that everyone's grasping what was just said. So, and I just want to make sure the address for the car wash, do you know that off the top of your head? Because that's the property that's the closest, I believe, to Reservoir Hill. That's
actually I don't, but it's at the corner, it's on the northeast corner of West North Avenue in McCullen. It's right across the street from, I guess, a flower or funeral home shop.
Okay.
It's right on that corner.
Okay.
And so that northeast block, there's so you had a car wash, and then you have like this office or apartment building in between, and then you have a church on that next block corner that is listed for sale.
It's right across the street from the Burger King. There's a gas station south of that. And then there's a Burger King catty corner from the gas station right there, right across the street from the Burger.
Right. And bringing that up, we did reach out to Burger King and the gas station because I initially, when I did a spatial GIS mapping, nerdy kind of analysis data thing, I saw that block as low in value but high impact. Obviously, Burger King wasn't interested in selling and going somewhere else, and neither was the gas station.
No, that's great though, that car wash that has been only a place for, litter Great to see that get developed. Any idea what will go there?
No. So I tell people that, and one of the things, I had this community meeting yesterday, and I really empathize with the residents of West Baltimore. And although I don't live close to West North Avenue, I do live in technically West Baltimore. I live in the Poppington neighborhood, and it's really been sad, the lack of equitable economic development and opportunity west and North Charles. And so right now, I just see the authority buying as many blighted and vacant lands as we can, and then issuing RFPs out to developers and nonprofit developers to get their ideas for development. But for me, it's about getting those properties off the market and at least into an entity's hand that will do something with them.
So that's the part that I was hoping that we would walk away all understanding that process. Because I think that was really helpful for me to grasp, is that the Development Authority is an entity that's set up by the state. So it came out of Maryland state legislation. I'm just repeating it, what you've already said in layman's terms. So this entity was created in order to be able to, in partnership with state agencies, acquire land on behalf of the state, but it's an independent organization, right? So it's not exactly a state entity, but it's state funded. It receives funds from the state and from the city in order to acquire these properties. And as of today,
yeah, it's a nuance. So it's a state. It is a state entity. So I guess an example of a Maryland independent agency would be like the Stadium Authority, or the Maryland Economic Development Corporation, right? And so those are a state established entities, but they operate independently of what we would call a principal department, like DHCD, right? So we don't have a direct line to, like, the governor doesn't appoint the executive director, right? However, the executive director has a dual reporting to the membership, which 15-member membership, but also to the governor's office and also the Board of Public Works, which is the chief administrative entity of the authority. And then, unlike the Maryland Department of the Stadium Authority or Maryland Department of Maryland Economic Development Corporation, we annually have to report to both sides of the General Assembly on the House and Senate side, to the finance committees. So we have the opportunity always to get direct appropriated funding from the state. We get our operating funding from the state, 50% of it. We get the other 50% from the city of Baltimore, mayor's discretionary grant. And then the hope is we will continue to get, like, what EBDI did, or was that the community partnership right on the other side was always receiving between $2 or $3 million every annually for economic or housing development. And I suspect that we will get a little bit more because we are a state agency, but that's the way it's set up. I hope. There's some nuances in there. Yeah.
Yes, but I'm trying to zoom out so people know, one, why this matters, and two, what they can do and why they should know this information, right? So I know we only have a short amount of time, so I just want to make sure my neighbors walk away understanding why this is important and how this is going to impact them. So, and thank you for giving those nuances, because I think it is important. But so as of this moment, you have acquired through this fund 3 properties, right? So it's the car wash. Is that?
We're in the process of acquiring those properties. So as you know, like most people know, it takes about 18 to 24 months. That doesn't even exclude us. And then as a state entity, we have to, once we've already done notice, we're going through the process with the state, with the city, and then they will turn over those properties to us. And then the Board of Public Works will then say, okay. So it's a little bit more tedious. We don't technically own it, but we got the first right of ownership.
Okay.
Let's put it like that.
All right, and then, sorry, Drika, I'll let you go, but I'm really trying to get to the point, which is,
No, sorry.
no, it's okay. Which is that right now, I think there's a couple questions I have as far as, you know, what does that mean over the long term? And what does it mean that you have, you know, pinpointed specific developers? But sorry, to zoom out, I just want to make sure people know what properties you're talking about. So, you know, visuals are helpful always, you know, so next time it would be really appreciated if you came with a presentation, just some visuals so people can see what you're saying, because it's a lot of information to take in. But so, you know, I showed you where it was on North Avenue, where the car wash was. And then further down are the Walbrook Mill apartments are further down.
Yeah, that's close
Avenue.
to Cochran.
And then the work that is happening on Penn North, obviously everyone is super familiar with Penn North, is happening further down, or sorry, Pennsylvania Avenue is happening further down the avenue. I've actually lost my place, but I think the intersection is right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just so people know, it's the authority only goes from, or the area, the catchment area, goes from Coppin Heights University down to on the easternmost part, it borders Reservoir Hill. So right here on, why am I forgetting the name of the Mount Royal? So that's where the catchment area. So it is a condensed area for the authority. And what, and I'll let you speak, Tarika, but a question I had, as you're acquiring and we're going through these vision plans and you're thinking through what it is that should be located along North Avenue, how, and I have the answer, so I should just say it, but how does a community be, how is a community involved in describing that? Because like I said earlier, Reservoir Hill does not have a vision plan. We do have that that insight plan that you, Inspire plan, sorry, that you described, but we don't have a city approved vision plan. So I wanted everyone to know that in order for us to participate in the way that Wanata was described, we have to attend weekly meetings and share with the authority what the vision for Reservoir Hill is. And so RHIC, Upper Utah Madison, and Reservoir Hill Association, we're going to be meeting. So that's the meeting I was talking about to discuss that. So if you have further important things that you want to share up to our representative, we can do that. And our representative, like you said, is John Dre Jennings, who is the president of Coppin Heights CDC. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood that part, because that's the part that affects Reservoir Hill the most. And of course, all of North Avenue affects us, but I wanted you to understand that. And the other part is that there are open public meetings that you can attend. We announce those, they happen monthly, and you can attend those to kind of get a sense of what the board is saying. The board meetings are, some of the board meetings are public and they're public sessions, so you can come in and listen and hear what's happening with the budget. You can hear how they're deciding on acquiring certain properties and things like that. So those are things that you can participate in. And separately, Jerika attends a meeting for all the communities east of Fulton, and that's run by John Dre Jennings, and she represents the community there. And so she's being tapped to report back and tell us the summaries of what's going on. Arlen is also attends those meetings, and so does Rolando Maxwell. But that's something that, since I cannot attend those meetings because they conflict with this meeting time, Jerika is going to be there. So Jerika, yes.
Minor question, you somewhat touched on it. Once and then somebody asked the question, once the properties are acquired by you, is it now considered state property?
Yes, it is actually considered state property.
And with that said, once it's acquired, who would be able to make the decision of who acquires those properties and what's being built? Because what I don't want to happen is someone's friend who might be a developer get the upper hand of first bid or first dib on this properties, and other small developers don't have a chance because I'm a friend of somebody who knows somebody, and they are given that allowed to develop on that property without sharing it with other people who have the capabilities of developing that property. So what would be, I guess, the procedures that would be followed to ensure who gets who will be able to acquire the property once the organization gets it?
Yeah, so the West North Avenue Authority, once it acquires a property, will not be reselling the properties. We will enter into what we call a lease agreement with anybody who wants to develop on the properties, but the state, through the West North Avenue Development Authority, will maintain ownership. That's my administrative decision. Now, 10 years from gone and I'm not here and something changes, I can't guarantee what happens, but that's my administrative decision. The second thing is the process is that because it will be owned by the state, we will have to issue an RFP through the Department of General Services. The Department of General Services would evaluate that. I believe someone asked the question about, minority participation, minority developers, small businesses. Obviously, the authority can make the RFP with additional bonus points for individuals that are, Black, women-owned, veteran-owned small businesses, so that they can get extra points, but they will have to compete. But the authority has envisioned providing technical assistance to individuals that may not be as fully capable as some of the big developers. Senator Antonio Hayes have talked about. We have talked about that being a component of a support system that the authority can do when we figure out how big the authority should be. And then once it goes to the Department of General Services, the Board of Public Works, which will be the governor, treasurer, and the comptroller, will also have to approve that. And so I think that's more than an open process. However, what I will say as an ad lib to that, I've been a public administrator going on for about 20 years. And one of the things that I always tell people, elected officials and citizens, if there's anything that concerns you, I can give you some advice on how to work within the system. And, obviously that's a traditional complaint that citizens have, that someone's friend or developer has received that. But at the end of the day, if you have someone that's interested in acquiring that property, it would be nice for me to be introduced to them, so that when that opportunity comes in a year or two, that they have the opportunity to be prepared to submit an application.
Okay, good answers, and I appreciate that your honesty. And the reason why I say that, because we're going to get a new administration that might come in. We don't know who's going to be the governor, but if we look at the statistics and things like that, this new governor is very friendly with a lot of people and a lot of politicians. And I just want to make sure that everybody's hands is kept clean and we don't have any nepotism in this process, and it's done fairly. So that's why I said that.
No, I think that's very fair, and I'm not a naive person.
Okay, so thank you, Jerika. Let's give this conversation 5 more minutes, just because I know that we have one other presentation on the call. We don't want to stay too late. Are there any other questions for Mr. Williams? Just to reiterate what was just said with Jerika, so we're really looking at the RFP process opening in the next 1 to 2 years. That's kind of the timeline that you're thinking. Okay, so the support for smaller businesses, or for instance, if there was a neighbor in the neighborhood, that had a business idea, they thought this would be an amazing opportunity to open a business on North Avenue. They're a small business owner, and they've never really submitted to an RFP process. Will there be some support or workshops in walking small business owners or new business owners in the process of submitting to an RFP like this?
Yeah, so I'm smiling. So we actually had a brainstorm discussion this last Thursday around creating a program support system. So we envision that. A lot of questions that people ask, it's kind of restraint right now because I'm a one person shop that's only tasked with coming up with a comprehensive plan and then looking for opportunities with this $1 million that I received. However, what I say, if you know someone that says, hey, look, I always wanted to start a business on North Avenue. I don't have a structured program, but because I don't have a structured program, that lends itself to a lot of flexibility to help that person right now. And so that's probably the most political way I can say it right now. And I say, really, if that's the case, this is probably the best opportunity to approach me between now until something gets structured, because I really do, unfortunately or unfortunately, see, because of my assessment of city management, that this authority will end up being something larger than what people expect in another couple of years, particularly for this quarter or maybe half of West Baltimore. I just been around a little bit long, and I just unfortunately see this entity being more than what it was probably intentionally designed for. And that's probably a sad state, sadly.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that. And, I have to ask the selfish question for Reservoir Hill. We have, as you said, a huge development that's on North Avenue, the Madison Park development. And then there's, as you said, there are two phases to that development, one of which was supposed to be apartment style buildings. But it sounds like you're really interested in, or you're curious, or at least your philosophy is more in support of long-term home ownership. And that's a conversation that we have often about why the city and state doesn't pursue multiple different avenues for long-term home ownership, including co-op models. And so I was asked, my curiosity is, are you thinking of pursuing, or is there any space to pursue those types of models within Reservoir Hill along the North Avenue corridor, or is all the land on North Avenue for Reservoir Hill spoken for?
No, I'm not aware of all the land in Reservoir Hill spoken for, but I've had discussions with neighborhood housing services, Home Free, Parity, on how we can, elevate their home ownership to fill in that gap. As a pure planning source, I believe that multifamily should continue to be around downtown, and unfortunately, because of the unequitable development, should just continue in the east side of Baltimore or around the harbor. But areas like this, I think you need to rekindle what was already there, and then like if there's areas like Walbrook Mill where it is closer to Coppin State University, that probably lends itself more to multifamily housing, because hopefully you're looking at the growth of student population in that area, and close to the Diamond Mall with commercial and retail. So it's just a natural organic fit for that. Maybe Madison Park from a professional planning aspect, that little particular area, Madison Park North, that particular area of commercial retail at the phase 3, which will be at that diamond corner. But other than that, I'm just philosophically am a home ownership person first, particularly without uprooting certain type of neighborhoods. And if you do multifamily, you keep the architectural and facades in place, but have larger square footage of multifamily, so you're not creating too much over density. Because that's what I'm dealing with in Popperton. I can barely find a place to park right now. And my alley gets blocked, so I can't even park in my own back carport. So yeah, with lots of taste. So I got my own neighborhood issues on that I'm dealing with too.
All right, well, we'll definitely want to have you back, especially so just so people understand the timeline for Reservoir Hill. That conversation, we're supposed to report back to the authority on anything we wanted to add
Mhm.
to the list by November 12th, I believe is the date, is our
Yep.
deadline for that.
Mhm.
So, and then there will be times to give feedback and revision. So it's
Yep.
not over by November 12th. We just know that we want to be able to share some input by that date. And then moving on into the spring, as you said, there's going to be designs and there's going to be iterations where we can still
Yep.
get feedback. So I did want everyone to know about that November deadline that we're.
That's more important for Christy and I, from a staffing aspect, so that we can at least have a platform for discussion moving forward in the fall, in the winter and spring.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Williams. I know this is overtime for you. You only plan to be here until October. Sorry, MJ, do you have a question? Okay. We will move on to the next presenter, and that is Mr. Castagnola.
Good pronunciation, thank you.
Welcome. Did you need access to share?
Maybe.
Okay.
And we're happy to. I'm also on the line is Pavel, who is one of the owners and lead members of the development team. And so for any questions I might not be able to answer, he's able to chime in and jump in. And so thank you for having us. Appreciate it. So Pavel has under site control 701 and 707 Druid Park Lake Drive, which are slated to be redeveloped into 2 multifamily buildings with off-street parking, not for all of the units. The using historic tax credits to maintain the integrity of the historic nature of the facade. I think most people are probably familiar with these buildings. They're large and substantial, and they occupy a meaningful amount of street frontage. And I think we're interested is ultimately we are requesting a letter of support for a zoning hearing for an increase in the number of units that is otherwise allowed by right, and a variance for the off-street parking requirement. Maybe you let me know, but maybe it might be helpful to know what questions that you might have or want to know about the building, the project, the intent, the plans, and we're happy to answer all of those questions. Folks are sophisticated. They know what's going on in the neighborhood. This is not new business in terms of like development in the area, and we're happy to share everything we possibly can about the projects.
Sure. I'm happy to open it up to discussion. I flashed on the screen the building that you're discussing, but if you have any visuals or any kind of documentation, we like to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Let me share the site plan is probably a good place to start.
Sure. Wait, I'll make you the co-host or the host.
So this is the site plan for 707. And 701 is, it's lightened, but the 701 site plan is exactly the same, except for the 701 side is bolded and the 707 would be lighter. And I'm happy to switch between them, but this is the site plan for the 2 properties. Parking would be in the back. Trash collection will exist in the rear as well. The intent is for increased lighting over the alleyway. We had conversations with the church about granting some sort of right of way or access to the back of the property. That is not in the cards. There'll be I guess like the sort of like summary, the summary information that we commonly encounter when we're talking about this in the community. So 701 is the larger of the two buildings. The intent is to have 20 units. The property offers 14 units by right based on the lot area size. So we're seeking a 6-unit variance. And 707, we're seeking to place 11 units. And it offers 8 by right, so we're asking for 3 units in density. The off-street parking lot will provide 15 spaces. As you're all familiar, that corner of the neighborhood has a lower parking intensity, just given the number of residential units adjacent to Park Ave. And so we'd be as part of the zoning appeal, we are also requesting a 16 off-street parking variance. Those buildings have been vacant for a long while. They're going to be completely rehabbed. The historic facades are going to be preserved. But ultimately, we expect it's going to be a positive. It's going to be really nice to see those buildings back in service. But we're happy to hear the questions, comments, or other concerns that that the community has that we can answer.
Okay, wonderful. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Castagnola?
The previous meeting at RHIC, you stated that the ETA for the completion when started would be how long?
Pavel wanted to be generous in his estimate and said 2 years. I imagine if you all have been paying attention for a while in general, in my experience working with developers, that is like not an unrealistic assumption given like city process, permitting, zoning, like just the entire, it's long and arduous. So that could be realistic. Of course, everybody wants to see it happen faster, period, always. But I think that's like a healthy dose of reality.
So realistically, you think it's going to take around 2 years to develop?
18 months to 2 years. I mean, even just like this sort of like initial conversations and the zoning process takes, it's months, like literal months to go through these like earlier stages, make sure we're chatting with folks to get these drawings together. It takes 3.5 months to get a zoning hearing. We submitted our application and our hearing is scheduled. Okay, this is important for everybody to know also. The hearing for 707 is scheduled for October 25th. But for 701, it is not scheduled yet, and we are awaiting. I think there are 2 realities that could occur here. One is like, we're curious to know your process around seeking letters of support. I think it's better to present both of these buildings at the same time to the zoning board. So realistically, we might, I am hopeful that 701 will be granted a hearing on November 1st. It might be late November. I think the 22nd is the date. And it would make sense for us to push 707 to the same date as 701. We asked RHIC for a letter of support. They wanted us to give them our explicit ask, which is what I had shared earlier about the increase in density and the variance for off-street parking. It's going to take a few weeks to like work itself out also. So I think realistically, these zoning hearings are going to be in November so that we can try to tie them together and ensure that we can like respond to any interests or things that the community wants to know.
And hello, folks. This is Pavel. Unfortunately, if you hear a lot of background noise, I'm actually driving back through Baltimore as we speak. Michael is correct. So we did say about 2 years. Now that is the total amount that we estimate for both projects. It's very likely that we intend to do them in phases. And so 707, granted, we get the permits, we get the approvals, we get everything timely. We will start on 707. And it is because it's a slightly smaller scope than 701. It is likely that 707 will be ready sooner than 701, if that makes sense.
Okay, there's a question in the chat. Do you have a list idea of square footage of units? How many of each number of bedrooms for each building? And also, do you mind clarifying, this is all rentals? These are all rental units?
Pavel, do you want to answer? Or do you want me?
Sure, happy to do that. These will be a range between 1 and 2 bedrooms. Our goal here is to make sure that they're affordable to different communities, right? So if it's single family or you have individuals, they're able to get the 1 bedroom. Of course, if you have a family, you'll have an opportunity to do 2 bedrooms. And they'll range somewhere between, I want to say 680 up to, I believe, 850 to 900 square feet. So these are substantially sized units. Hopefully that answers the question. And yes, these will be rentals. That's correct. And we as a developer, we are a small group. It's just me and my partner. We are in this business in order to make sure that we stay with the community. So we're not one of the flippers that comes in, makes a quick buck, and leaves. We're in this for a long term. And this is the reason why we're having these conversations so early with the community, make sure we hear the feedback from everyone. The idea here is to stay with the community and stay with this building for a very long time from here.
And whatever's easy to share these plans out post or after we can give you the entirety of the zoning application.
Yes, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah,
We'd love
for sure.
to place that. Chet, you have your hands up, and then I also want to say in the chat, there's a request for elevation drawings.
The elevations have not been prepared yet. We will share them with you as soon as we have them 100%. We've got the site plan, the floor plan, and there's also going to be a presentation. We're going to be at the Future of Druid Hill Park event tomorrow evening, and these guys are going to be presenting on this, so there'll be like some additional drawings to show then. But we're happy to like keep sharing all of the information as it emerges and is available.
So based on the drawings that you're showing, it looks like it's 3 units per floor on the larger building at 701.
This is 707.
Oh, that's 707.
Yeah. So there's 11 units in 707, 3 per floor. True.
And what's the mix on the 701? That might be more, when I asked size of number of bedrooms, actually the number per floor might be more illuminating. It's 4 to 5 per floor. Predominantly 1 with some 2 beds. Thank you.
There's a request in the chat to see a plan for the parking plan. So, and while you show that, can you repeat how many additional parking spaces you would need outside of the parking that you provided?
We're providing 15 off street. Which is in this picture, the bottom left and to the right. Let me see if this one might just illuminate.
For both buildings?
For both buildings. And we are requesting 16.
And that fulfills the requirement for a parking spot for each unit.
True.
Okay.
So 31 total units between the 2 buildings.
Okay. Lily Goldsmith asks, will people be entering that rear parking lot only through the alley between the 2 properties?
Pavel, can you jump in on that one?
That's correct. That is the current plan, yes.
If you have anything to add or follow up, Lily, feel free to add to the chat. Melda asks, are you planning to have a site maintenance crew?
Pavel, I'm also sending that.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Are you planning on having a super or a site maintenance crew of people that are going to maintain the building and make sure that the trash is taken care of and the actual site is being taken?
Understood. I missed that question. So we will have a property manager that is actually part of the folks that we've worked with in the past that will make sure that everything is taken care of. The last thing we want is trash all over and rats, because that doesn't add to the appeal of anything. And so we'll make sure that our property manager is on site when necessary, available 24/7, as they are usually across all of our properties.
And this might be a question for Dale or for Rolando. Are you aware as to whether or not this building, specifically 701, is a part of the historic district?
It's part of the CHAP, so it is CHAP, part of the CHAP district, and it is part of the city. And so that is the compliance we're seeking. And we're working with the city now to make sure that the building retains its historical value.
Okay. Because I see that you're planning to remove the existing carriage house. Is that a historic carriage house?
That's correct. So that is actually structurally unsound. We've had a structural engineer walk through it, and his advisement was that it be removed.
Okay. So, as people are continuing to think about questions, you did ask us a question about our process for writing letters of support. So what RHA does and what the Planning and Development Committee specifically does is they reach out to the most affected neighbors. So for this particular building, I imagine we would need to go down around Park Avenue and the actual neighbors that are impacted by the change in parking that you're requesting, and get their opinion on that change, and making sure that we have a democratic response to that. So the board itself does not approve or reject requests. We generally survey the most affected neighbors for that particular development. Of course, there's a lot of vacancies along Druid Park Lake Drive, so we have to think through what that means for this particular property. So in general, I know the main concerns that neighbors tend to have, and of course, once you give us the information, we do our own research and see, we look at your plans, we look at the history of the building, we look at past occupancy to make recommendations to you as a developer. And generally, that's in a month cycle. So since your meeting, your BMZA hearing is on the 21st, it would take us at least a month to do that cycle generally, but I'm sure Arlen will be in discussions with you about what that would look like, because we're all volunteers. We can't expedite things because we have to do everything around our personal schedules. So then from there, based on what we hear neighbors say, we then and our research and looking at the law, we then make recommendations in our letter, which can either be a letter of support, it can be a letter to ask you to consider other options, or it can be a straight up where we just cannot support the letter and we write a letter of opposition to the BMZA. So it's completely dependent on what the Planning and Development Committee thinks, and then also what the most affected neighbors think. So I have heard that there are some concerns on Park Avenue for parking. Although you said it was not a restricted area, I would love to talk to members who live on Park Avenue so they can speak to that particular issue. I don't feel comfortable speaking on that because I don't live on that side of the neighborhood. But yeah, generally those are the concerns about parking. Trash maintenance is another one. Making sure that communication around construction is a big one. And then of course, what you've already spoken to, which is the desire to maintain the historic quality of the building. So those are the general things that people usually come back with opinions on, but until we have time to talk to the neighbors, we won't really know.
Cool. You said about a month.
generally. I mean, I don't want to speak for Arlen, but that's generally what it takes, the timeline for us to do that whole process.
Yeah, I think we could have it done before the next meeting if that suffices.
Yeah, that's cool. We no, that works. And Arlen, if you're the like most appropriate like point of contact, we can be in touch about. But we are awaiting our hearing date for 701, and I expect it will be in November. And so there intends to be 2 zoning hearings in November, and so we can like work together around that. So it's a few weeks regardless.
Yeah. Hopefully you can get those consolidated into November, because she said the 707 was initially scheduled for October.
Yeah, for the 25th, and then 701 where it has to be scheduled still, and we can and pushing them to be at the same time is completely reasonable and logical.
I agree.
Right, like they're working together. Right, these buildings are synergizing themselves in the neighborhood, so it's cool.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Arlen. So Lily asks, what would the surveying process of Park Avenue neighbors look like potentially? So we can give you an example of what was done previously with 2201. Generally, from the Planning and Development Committee, there is a neighbor who steps up, who lives close to the building, and they say, I'm gonna, take up the responsibility of contacting my neighbors. And several neighbors, usually 5 or 6 neighbors, step up to do that process, and they will go to door to door with a petition of their neighbors and ask them, what they think. They'll give the packet that you share with us to their neighbors and ask them what they think about about the project, and they'll either sign a petition to approve or not approve it. But generally that discussion occurs within the Planning and Development Committee first, and then from the Planning and Development Committee, there is then a surveying of the most impacted neighbors. So like I said, Lily, because this particular building, I think, is surrounded on the other side by vacant, it's going to be a little bit different. So usually it's pretty easy to kind of map out what the closest neighbors are, like what the closest neighbors would be, but because it's Druid Park, so there's not really neighbors in front, and there's vacants on the other side, I imagine that the majority of folks will be on Park Avenue that will be surveyed. But I'm just speaking off the cuff. I would leave that in the hands of the Planning and Development Committee. They're usually the group that takes that on. And I know there's a few of our very active neighbors on the call on Park Avenue. And so hopefully they'll be at that Planning and Development Committee to create that plan.
Thank you, that's so helpful.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, one thing, if you happen to be one of those neighbors who is directly affected by this project or will be, please reach out to us. As you know, this, as Keandra said, this is an all voluntary association, so it is highly dependent upon the constituents of the community.
Thank you, Arlen. There is never, we always are trying to make that call to action. If you are not involved and you think, hey, this actually will impact me, I want this building developed, I've been waiting for it to be developed, I want to make sure it goes through, and so I'm going to help with the surveying process, or, oh my God, I can't park now, how am I going to park future? I want to be part of the process. Whatever your opinion is, please reach out to Planning and Development. I'll put the email in the chat, email us, join the committee. When's your next committee meeting, Arlen?
Let's see, that's the first. You caught me in there, Keandra.
Sorry.
Sorry, it's always the last Monday of the month, and I do believe that'll be the
last Monday of the month will be the 31st.
Yeah, so we might need a meeting in between to take this on so that, the process can get started. And, if you need support and help as a neighbor to do that, of course, the board will pitch in, or other members of the organization will pitch in. We really love it when neighbors spearhead it because it's more authentic. So please do reach out if you are in the affected area and you would like to be a part of that decision-making process. All right, so if there's no further questions, Going once, going twice. I'm going to take back the ownership of the meeting. We are, at 8:36. It's late. It's a Tuesday. And I'm sure we all have work or school or something in the morning. So I'd like to switch gears, if that's okay, Mr. Casagnola. Thank you so much for your openness and honesty and willingness to work with us in our timeline. So I'm sure Arlen will be in contact about, potentially shifting that BMZA date to later in November potentially, and how we can work with you to make sure we get our process done so it aligns with that hearing. If that's not possible, please do reach out to Arlen and update him and let him know on that.
Sure, and I'll send you the round of drawings also that you can share.
Perfect. And you can send that at contact at Reservoir Hill or PDC, and we'll make sure to get that up on the website so that everyone can see that. So that's generally where we put all of that information. And I'm saying we loosely because it's really Melda doing all that work. So we'll transition really quickly now. Thank you again to just closing out the meeting with a couple events that are taking place. And then if anyone on the call, I know we have a lot of community partners on the call. So if there's additional events that we did not put in our slideshow, please feel free to speak up. But reiterating the Future of Druid Hill Park event happening on this Thursday at 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. at the Mansion House. I did have the link somewhere, but then I lost it. But if you Google the future of Druid Hill Park, or if Melda is extra fast, it could put it in the chat, or someone else can put the link for the Eventbrite registration. You can register on Eventbrite for that event, and it's a great moment to meet all the neighbors that live along Druid Hill Park and are interested in that park and investing in it and making sure that it remains a resource for all the surrounding communities. Please attend. I do believe registration is free, and RHA is one of the community sponsors, so we definitely encourage you to attend. Quickly, this is our meeting schedule. See, I didn't have to do that to you, Arlen. I would have had it up on the screen, but this is the general rotation of our meetings every month. I'm just flagging that the events committee is meeting on Friday this month instead of Thursday to make space for that October 27th RAT event. Make sure that you, if you haven't already, consider joining as a member, signing up at www.reservoirhillassociation.org. If you have any questions about membership or how else you can participate, please feel free to email us at contact@reservoirhillassociation.org. That email will go to our entire board. And you can also email the entire board at board@reservoirhillassociation.org. And that's it for tonight. Thank you for staying the whole time. Oh, Lily, do you mind? Do you want to go ahead and share about the Harvest Festival?
Sure. So just if it's not already on your radar, just wanted to quickly plug the 12th annual Reservoir Hill Harvest Festival, which will be taking place along Whitelock Street between Linden and Brookfield. The street will be closed, so events will be taking place in the RHIC community lot on the St. Francis front lawn at the farm. So we'll have the Kugel and Green Cook-Off Contest, the cider press, music, pumpkin decorating, cornhole, horseback riding, all kinds of different things. So please join us this Sunday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Awesome. We look forward to that. And then in addition, there is that October 31st annual Halloween festival that Upper Utah Madison throws that we'll be supporting, and other organizations certainly will be supporting. So please plan to attend that. That's usually centered on Madison Avenue, and I hope everyone can attend. I don't have the time off the top of my head, but I know that it'll be in our newsletter. So that should be another reason why you would sign up online for our newsletter and for our other communications. So thanks everyone for coming tonight. We hope to see you in committee And if we don't see you in committees, we hope to see you next month in November. Have a really, really good night, and stay warm and stay safe. See you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.